So I think I'll kick off there. So I'm delighted today to have Chris Johnson joining us. We're going to talk through today how SAP's GRC solutions are responding to the modern business network. My name's Richard Hunt. I'm the founder and CEO of Turnkey. Hopefully those joining us are aware of Turnkey and our service offerings, but we've been working in this space for 18 years now. And we've actually, Chris and I have known each other since the very beginning of the company. So yeah, we have a long-standing friendship, so it's great that he's come along to join us today. I'll let Chris, you introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Yeah, it's been a hell of a journey over many years, and you know, with regards to the solutions that we've seen within SAP GRC, it was quite a small portfolio when you first introduced Turnkey to the world, and we've seen huge changes in that in time. My role has kind of changed and evolved similarly, that at one point in time, whenever Turnkey started, I was responsible globally for GRC, especially around access management, etc. But over the last few years, I've moved more into finance as well, and currently I'm responsible for the finance and risk portfolio that we've got at SAP across EMEA North, managing the pre-sales organization and also our demand generation. So it's a huge pleasure for me. I really appreciate the invite. I'm looking forward to today. Thanks, Richard.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks for joining us. So before we kick off, just a couple of housekeeping points. So we're going to be recording the session, and it'll be available for people to download later. It will be distributed to our Key Insights group. If you've got any questions, we're going to have a Q&A session at the end of the session in about 45 minutes, around that. If you've got any questions, put them into the question box at the bottom of the Zoom call, in the Q&A box, and I'll pick those up towards the end and ask them of Chris. So, I mean, just to kick us off, today we're going to be talking about how an SAP GRC structure is there to support tomorrow's business. We've got a lot of interesting developments in the SAP space. The modern SAP landscape is a hybrid one. There's a lot of interesting challenges that represents on the GRC side. As a topic, the GRC subject, you know, we need to look at an integrated approach to GRC. We always have done. There's a lot of risk silos across the organization, and that's something that we need to bring together in terms of integration, but we also need to look at integrating risk in a vertical sense, making sure that when we're presenting risk information to decision makers, we're enabling them with information not just around how risk managers are responding to risk in terms of self-assessment, but also factual information, surfacing that through into your risk reporting around how your controls are operating and how effectively they're operating, whether remediation is taking place, etc. So Chris is going to give us an overview of SAP's view on that topic, and also talk to us a little bit about how SAP's GRC solutions have evolved to meet those challenges in the modern SAP landscape. And in particular, which I'm really excited by, he's going to talk to us a little bit about some of the things coming down the line in that SAP GRC portfolio, and educating our customer base around what comes next in the GRC space from SAP. So with that, I'm delighted that Chris can join us, and I'd like to hand over to him to talk us through that.
Okay. Yeah. No. Thanks again, Richard. Looking at this list of kind of questions or topics for today, the very top one sticks out for me. Why integrated GRC is critical to effective risk management. I think that one of the trends that we've seen recently is that companies who previously invested in point siloed solutions are really understanding the necessity really to have a truly integrated GRC. And if I go to my first slide, you know, oh, sorry, my first slide is a disclaimer. So first of all, a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is roadmap information. So legally, I have to present that it is just roadmap and doesn't constitute any promise. That's my quick overview of this slide. But with regards to the point about why integrated GRC is critical to effective risk management, the first point to say is that the word integrated in that question is effectively null and void. It shouldn't be needed, because whenever GRC was created as a concept, it was all about the integration of capabilities. As OSEG, the Open Compliance and Ethics Group, who pretty much are the, who have come up with the definition, it's the collection of capabilities that enable an organization to reliably achieve objectives, address uncertainty, and act with integrity. So integration is absolutely part of it. In fact, that we're talking about integration across multiple different parts of the business, whether that's enterprise risk management, compliance management, fraud management, internal controls, internal audit. All these things are interrelated, and yet for a long time, and even with some companies still today, they're managed quite separately. So the topic of GRC was about getting benefits out of integrating these things together. And like I said, that's one of the biggest trends that we've seen recently, is companies investing in integrating all these departments, etc., together. Now, there's two words here which I think are a big focus. One is reliably achieve objectives. All companies have got their objectives, and address uncertainty. So let me focus on objectives and then uncertainty. So let's move to what an objective is in the business. Now, for most businesses, I think profit is seen as the core objective. Especially back in the 80s with Gordon Gekko, etc. It was all about money, money, money. But in reality, there's lots of other things now that are objectives for business. And it could be better customer service, agility. Agility, of course, hugely important now because of really the rapid changes we are seeing and the ability to be able to pivot and change direction. Also, of course, compliance is hugely important, customer loyalty, sentiment, etc. And all businesses have some of these as their objectives. Even non-profit organizations will see some of these other objectives as being their goals. And the problem is that there are uncertainties, environmental, and these uncertainties we call risks. Now, the important thing to note, and one of the things that I mentioned, is the importance of integrating all these things together. And that's because if I take the example of maybe a cybersecurity risk, where an attacker has got into an environment and has decided to sit there for a while and record information, there's a lot of different risks. Obviously, it's a cyber risk. It could harm the operations of the business. It could mean you're incompliant. A lot of the regulations now are encouraging companies to really put adequate protection in place and next generation protection in place. It would certainly damage your reputation if you had to announce it and mention it to the market, etc. There could be financial loss, etc. So it's not just as simple as saying that, you know, one issue is related to one risk. It's the integration of all these risks and the understanding how one affects the other that's very important for businesses today. Now, whenever we talk about risks and how to manage those, we're really talking about risk management. But it's not just about risk management, of course. It's really about risk management, but also how you control those risks, how you mitigate those risks, the compensating controls that you put in place to reduce those risks. We also have, of course, compliance management, which is closely related because we put controls in place not only to reduce the risks, but also to manage compliance. And of course, we need the oversight, which is provided by internal audit management and the corporate governance or policy management as well. These things all need to be integrated and they need to share, sync, align information between each other. And that's really where SAP started back in 2000, well, the early days, back in the 2010s. We started thinking about GRC in this way, that we really needed to build a platform for organizations to work with. And it had to be modular because all organizations prioritize one thing over the other. I think back in 2002, whenever Sarbanes-Oxley came out, the big focus was on internal controls. A couple of years later, whenever we saw the financial crisis, etc., the focus shifted for a lot of companies to being more about risk management. But at SAP, we call this the 3 lines model. all these solutions should be able to pass information, accurate information between the end users of the business, but also the management layer, the GRC layer within the business, sometimes it's called. And then with that information should be the same information that is passed to internal audit. Still today, there's a lot of organizations where these are different departments that don't often speak to each other, using different tools that don't integrate. And the end result can be a lot of duplication of effort, lack of standardization, lack of understanding. You imagine that there are reports coming from different geographies around the world. And I know a scary number of businesses who have a department whose job it is just to collate Excels, to be able to look at GRC reports from multiple solutions around the world and try to combine those and cleanse them to be able to get some insight. And of course, that's hugely suboptimal. Now, the 3 lines model it used to be called the 3 lines of defense. I think in other parts of the world, it's called combined assurance or integrated risk and controls. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's about the integration of the capabilities, not only, as Richard mentioned, not only across all those departments, but also across the different levels, from the end users all the way to the audit organization. Now, when it comes to actual products, I think you probably know this, but we've got a solution called SAP Risk Management, which has capabilities to do risk management, but it also contains policy management functionality. And we've also got a solution called SAP Process Control, which is our internal control solution and our compliance solution. And that also contains policy management functionality, but also manages internal controls and compliance. And then we've got our SAP audit management solution. The important thing is that these 3 things integrate together. Whenever we're doing audits, we should be doing audits based on the highest risks of the organization. The risks are mitigated by internal controls, usually, or can be mitigated by internal controls. So it's important to get an accurate risk picture, that you are getting a feed from the internal control testing to see which controls are working, which are appropriate, which are ineffective, and therefore you get a more accurate picture of risk management. And the other thing is this SAP audit management can use the testing capabilities of process control to run audit tests in the organization. So these 3 solutions can integrate together, offering 1 + 1 = 10 here. It really is offering more than they do individually. We also have a solution called business integrity screening, which came just a few years ago. This also could be considered an internal control solution, but really it's a HANA-powered deep dive solution to look at big data and analyze for anomalies within the organization. But these solutions we consider to be our 3 lines of defense solutions, or what we're calling the 3 lines model. Now, the important thing of this 3 lines model is that we're not only looking into the business, the ERP systems. We're definitely not looking only at the SAP ERP system. We have to go across non-SAP systems as well. And we also have to integrate, and we have to understand that we are dealing with people, and we have to make it as easy as possible for those people, for the people to feed information into this 3 lines model. We've seen those people disappear from the business recently and head to their homes. Now, this just brings added challenges and added complexity. A lot of people in their own homes don't have the level of security or the level of protection that they did have whenever they were in their offices. And customers or companies needed to react to that very quickly. And a lot of them have, but a lot of companies are still looking for solutions to how they really can manage the remote workforce. These days, of course, Richard mentioned, things are changing all the time. And now we've got things like Internet of Things and sensors where we can feed information directly into the 3 lines of defense as well. And we've also now got cloud deployment. So, I think one of the biggest changes over the last few years is a huge rush towards cloud. And even if companies are not moving totally to a public cloud SaaS solution, we're usually in some sort of hybrid environment, especially the bigger customers have got some sort of hybrid solutions, which it does add extra challenges for us, because there has to really be a discussion with experts such as Turnkey to decide what is the appropriate solution, what is the priority solution for you as an organization. But the other things we need to look into, hopefully, is look into third parties, partners, suppliers, customers, etc., and get information from them. And the way we do this, you can see here, I've got some of these little dots flying up and down. Now, those are intended to reflect kind of the automated testing. So where we don't need a human being, but the information is fed automatically into the 3 lines model. And we do that through things like automated control tests, key risk indicators, etc. But whenever I talk down here about the people, we also need to be feeding information in. And here you can see Excel spreadsheets, Adobe interactive forms, and simple emails. Now, it's a little slower getting the information in, but it's not necessarily slow. It's just semi-automated instead of instant. But it does mean that we can gather information from most of what's down here and feed it into the 3 lines model. Now, like I said, that is purely talking about our risk management, process controls, audit management, and business integrity screening solutions. And as you probably know at SAP, we've got a lot of other solutions as well. So where do they fit in? Well, they fit in to this central column here. This central column is where we have got a lot of what I'm calling specialist GRC solutions. Now, these fit underneath the umbrella that is the 3 lines model. And I think the question that we had right at the start, is integrated GRC critical to effective risk management, is unfortunately still a very valid question, because companies have invested in GRC solutions, but not necessarily a GRC platform or a GRC framework. So they have bought some cybersecurity solutions which are badged as GRC solutions, and they've bought some tax compliance solutions or some supply chain risk solutions. And each of them may be considered to be a GRC solution, but the company can't really consider that they are doing GRC properly until these solutions are all integrated under some sort of methodology, such as the 3 lines of defense. Now, I don't have time today to go into all these solutions, and it is a roadmap presentation, but I don't have time to go into all the details of all the things we're thinking about in all these spaces. So I am going to focus today a little bit, but let's have a quick look at where we, one of our highest priority areas. This is cybersecurity, identity, and access. Now, one of the first solutions that SAP invested in was our SAP access control solution. It was soon after Sarbanes-Oxley, of course, and companies needed to be aware of what access their employees have got and whether that access could constitute a segregation of duties. It is still today our #1 solution. Companies still have this problem of managing segregation of duties, and so access control still continues to be a hot seller. But you can see that over the years, we've expanded our solution suite to cover a lot more areas. Often access control does not get considered to be a cybersecurity solution, but if you're not looking at what access the actual users that you employ within the organization and checking what access they've got, it's like step 1 for cybersecurity. It's one of the basics. Now, a couple of these items I've put in light blue, and these are our public cloud solutions, our SaaS solutions. Now, we have to be clear here that when we talk about cloud, there's really 2 levels of cloud. One of those is that we have taken our on-premise solutions, maybe rewritten them a little bit, but we're hosting them and they're being offered as a managed service. So effectively, those are cloud solutions. There's no work, there's no data center required at the customer side. So that being taken off the customer's hands means that they can be considered cloud solutions. But the trend is really to move to those public cloud solutions, those SaaS solutions that we can see here, such as identity and access governance. Identity and access governance has similar functionality to access control, but it's on the cloud. And it's what we can do now is we can connect identity and access governance to function as a bridge for access control whenever we come across those hybrid scenarios that I talked about before. There's lots of other solutions that are relevant, of course, identity management, single sign-on. We also have the cloud versions of those, identity authentication service, identity provisioning service. And this is most of what we see in our development at the minute is the creation of new services for the public cloud. Access violation management allows access control to query non-SAP systems such as Oracle, Salesforce, etc. We also have a product called dynamic authorization management, which has been adopted by some of our defense companies, but also some of our biggest retailers. This is maybe the next level of security for companies. Access control is based on the RBAC concept, the role-based access control, whereas dynamic authorization management looks at the context a little bit more. It uses something called attribute-based access control. So looking at the time the person is making the access, where that person is located, etc., and then making a decision whether the person should have access at that point in time. So it's kind of a complement to access control. On the cybersecurity side, we've got enterprise threat detection. One of our most recent HANA-based solutions to do that mass data analysis to identify anomalies. And we've also recently got a new partnership with Onapsis, who have a wealth of, well, they've got solutions, but also I think Onapsis' core is their investigation into vulnerabilities that there are, and their announcement. Sometimes we suffer from it. They're good friends of ours, but sometimes it's hard whenever Onapsis are announcing that they found a vulnerability in SAP that just creates more work for us. But it's a great partnership because it makes a lot of sense to have those guys supporting us with our cybersecurity efforts. We also have code vulnerability analysis, config management, etc. as well. And over in the privacy side, we've got some new solutions: privacy governance, data custodian, privacy management, and also our standard masking and logging solutions, which are very, very popular at the minute because they're so quick to implement and they use the same concepts as standard SAP authorizations. So they can very quickly be implemented and just offers that masking and logging, which is very important in the days of GDPR, for example. So that's kind of a quick overview of kind of where we are with regards to the solutions. And I could go into these other ones. We've got solutions around global trade, of course, as well. GTS, import-export trade preference, a lot of different solutions in a lot of different areas. And this is why I say I can't go into all the detail today. One thing to mention is the efforts that we've put into making it easier for people to get involved. Like I said down here, it's vital that we're getting a feed from people, even if they don't know that they're feeding into a GRC system, which happens quite a lot. It's useful maybe to send surveys to people, send them Adobe forms by email, and their responses can automatically update the information within the 3 lines model. Potentially, risk values can go up and down, control reporting can go up and down based on the feedback from the people who are just filling in a survey. But of course, we've got Fury interfaces now, as within most of our solutions. We've got very flexible embedded analytics. We've got drag and drop user interfaces, etc., mobile apps. And in the future, a lot of the development will be going into increasing the intuitiveness and the interactivity of our of the way that people interact with these solutions. Now, over the years, I think over our lifetimes, definitely, almost everything in this world has changed. I don't know whether I told Richard this story, but it always scares me that my first telephone number was a single digit. My phone number was Clooney 9. And then my father was a vicar, which meant that I was one of the people in Ireland that was allocated a single digit number. But in those days, I had a telephone that I actually had to turn a handle and then contact an operator and say, could you please connect me to? And I can imagine her sitting there moving these switches, etc. And you fast forward only a few years, but we've got to a stage now where, you know, I'm in my kitchen and I can say, drop in on my mum, and I will appear in my mum's kitchen. And that sort of change has been so rapid that companies really need to be aware not only of what changes have happened recently, but also what's coming up soon. Change is really the only constant at the minute. So one thing I wanted to kind of highlight today is what are the changes that we are seeing with regards to GRC at SAP? And I think I've already mentioned one, which is a move to the cloud. Companies are investing in cloud solutions, even though in some cases, maybe their existing solutions mean that it's not appropriate for them at this time, or maybe there are legal regulations which prevent them moving to the cloud, which we've seen in some industries, etc. But regardless, there is this trend, and ultimately, I think we're moving to a full public cloud offering at some stage, but it's a few years away until we reach that stage. And right now we're in a kind of limbo stage where we have to be able to support hybrid models. The other thing we've seen is a move to hyperscalers, and we need to be able to take that into consideration as well. And actually, we've got a couple of solutions developed really because of the way that our customers are moving to hyperscalers. We've also seen a huge increase in cybersecurity concerns. It's so big right now that it's worth highlighting. The number of reported attacks in the UK in the first half of 2021 was 7 times larger than the amount in the first half in 2020. That's the level of escalation. And the other thing is we know that a lot of these attacks are not being reported at all. So I don't know how we could even guess what the actual number is regarding the attacks that we're seeing. And we've also seen, probably on the back of some of these challenges, we've seen an increase in regulations. And now some of these regulations truly do have teeth, things like GDPR, UK SOX, etc. And finally, like I mentioned at the start, we're really seeing companies come back to us and invest in a more expansive offering. Companies who invested in control solution now integrating risk management or integrating audit management. Companies who invested in access control, implementing access violation management or IAG to extend access control across more of their systems. So I've been with SAP now for 16 years. And like I mentioned to Richard at the start, I've seen an evolution of our SAP GRC solution. So back in the day, it was the corporate scandals at the beginning of the 2000s, which really proved a catalyst to get GRC. And it was a guy called Michael Rasmussen at Forrester that came up with the term GRC. And as I mentioned, to kind of promote the integration of all these capabilities. So in 2000 to about 2007, we were really focused on point control solutions like access control or process control to set up an internal control system. And what happened then, we moved on to about 2008, where we had a financial crisis. And like I said before, we got an increased requirement for enterprise risk management. We needed broad enterprise-wide GRC to increase efficiency, but really also to cover all aspects of compliance and the potential risks that can arise in an enterprise. And then we integrated the solution with GRC 10, where we actually put process control and risk management and access control all on the same. It's the same deployment. It's just licensing that separates them, and that was a huge step change for us. Later on, in about 2014, we knew that compliance events after effect is really not good enough. So we really wanted to be there and actually prevent compliance events from happening. And that required embedding compliance within the business processes. And then moving on to 2017, I'm hoping most of you have heard of SAP HANA, but it offered us huge potential. It was a very exciting time whenever we started developing solutions on HANA and being able to watch customers take the rules that they had previously been using, for example, for fraud management, and put them onto a HANA system and seeing the results in literally seconds or minutes as opposed to being hours or days. It was, again, a massive step change for us. Now we've seen 2018 onwards, we're seeing, of course, the focus of cloud. And like I said, we've got identity access governance, as mentioned, data privacy governance, but also a new solution, which I'll come on to in a second, called SAP Financial Compliance, which is our internal control solution, but on the cloud. And our direction going forward is really to create autonomous GRC systems, which can proactively deliver risk management solutions. Now, so let's start with enterprise risk and compliance. Again, this is kind of what we call the 3 lines solutions, but our risk, process, etc. Maintaining effective internal controls, risk management, assessing and monitor risks, and internal audit. And there's really 4 main themes, that, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, for development. Number 1 is the enhanced usability. And this doesn't just mean having a nicer, prettier user interface with Fury, which which whilst true is only part of it. We really need back-end integration to mean that the end-to-end processes are easier, to make it the usability increase for the productivity of our users. Now, one of the core strengths of GRC solutions from SAP is the deep integration with back-end systems. So we're investing in continuous monitoring and automated controls across major business processes such as financial reporting for HR, treasury, procure to pay, and so on. And doing that by integrating into enterprise applications and our new cloud acquisitions, things like Ariba, SuccessFactors, etc. And one of the requests from our customers is also to provide better analytical tools to generate additional insights and reporting. So again, this is another huge focus for us right now. And we also know, and this is a vital point, that a lot of you guys have invested in our on-premise solutions like access control, process control, business integrity screening. And we also know that there is still a long life ahead for those solutions, as mentioned earlier, but we'd like you to take advantages of the latest technologies like cloud or artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc. So we are now investing in cloud services which can help you extend the capabilities of the GRC solutions that you've already invested in. Now, I think it's important to mention financial compliant management. It is our internal solution. I apologize, it's a bit of a busy slide, but this is not an all-encompassing list of everything that we've got, but it's a kind of a best of to mention. So financial compliance management, it's an internal control solution launched just within the last year, and it delivers internal controls for the cloud. And it comes with a series of rules, which they're financial controls rules, but essentially they were and are for Sarbanes-Oxley. They are relevant to UK SOX as well. We've also started investing and creating a risk management solution in the cloud, a risk services in the cloud. And you can see the starting point here. We're talking about risk documentation and analysis. Now, there's no way that in the short time that we've been working on cloud, I think we've seen huge steps forward. But these solutions at the bottom, the on-premise solutions, are very, very mature solutions now that have been used for a long time, and a lot of our customers are using them. But we are, at some point in time, going to reach a point where we've got parity of functionality, and that's really the goal, but it is a journey to get there. If we look in the middle, we can look at planned innovations. Planned innovations is really stuff that's already underway. The future direction is things we're going to do in the future, thinking about doing in the future. But right now, we focus on increasing the connectivity of the solutions. We've started with SAP S4, but we're not limiting ourselves to ERP systems. There is, of course, SAP ERP, but other components that make up what we call the intelligent enterprise at SAP, SuccessFactors, Ariba, Concur, etc. And via standard interface, you can really integrate these things and third-party solutions as well. From a risk point of view, we're currently developing the capability to be able to support different taxonomies like ISO and NIST, etc., and focusing on risk indicators as well as a future direction. Now, in the future, development is planned around the increased operational support for financial compliance with regards to issue creation and issue remediation. And especially what customers are asking for is the capability to drill down into the issues. If something's been highlighted in the application and if the issue is really in a system, a remote system, it makes sense to allow the people who identify the issue to be able to drill down to the line item, to be able to, with one click, be there and get information about what is really going on. And that's a focus as well for us. In the risk area, we're going to be able to add libraries, standard libraries from a content management point of view, not only standard content, and increase the number of controls by collaborating with our partners, such as Turnkey, who've, I think Turnkey have got a methodology, I'm not sure what Richard's called Bedrock, which comes with all their experience over the years of implementing these solutions, but also usually with a lot of content as well. And that's hugely valuable for companies. SAP do provide and are kind of getting better at providing a set of rules, but those rules are really only a starting point, because there's always going to be intricacies and differences between companies. So all our partners are very, very valuable in adding that content and adding that expertise to the solutions. If you move down to the on-premise solutions, like I said, there's still a future in those. We've got our 3-line solutions: process, risk, access, and our process, risk, audit, and business integrity screening. And recent innovations we've seen, the additional support for offline scenarios, ad hoc issues, disclosure surveys, etc. We've got improved risk aggregation in risk management, and the ability to support risk workshops directly in the system. Business integrity screening, our high volume analysis tool to identify anomalies, we've just improved the screening capabilities. And this is maybe the difference, is that on the cloud, we're developing new functionalities, etc. For our on-premise, our kind of settled and mature solutions, it's all about increasing the reach, increasing the integration possibilities, making it easier to use, etc., but not necessarily adding huge amounts of extra functionality. Planned innovations, we've got continuous control monitoring, again, being extended, and additional key risk indicators or automated key risk indicators built in to analyze the risks potentially appearing in, for example, the S/4HANA systems. And SAP audit management is currently being enhanced to extend support for partner audits as well. And in the future, the mass handling of work items for process control, risk and response automation for risk management, based on, focused at least on S/4HANA. We say we're, it's developed for S/4HANA, but not tethered to it. It being connected to multiple other systems as well. And SAP audit management, a little bit of changes around how we manage the resources, RPA support, and additional analytics again. Now I want to go into a little bit of depth about financial compliance management, because this is generally available now. And we do get a lot of questions around it, because it is an internal control solution, and we do already have an internal control solution, so hence the questions and the challenges. Like I said, we really need solutions to be developed as public cloud SaaS solutions in the cloud. And this is developed on our BTP platform, or SAP Cloud Platform. And the intention is that it can identify inconsistencies in the organization, any anomalies or deviations for best practices, factual errors, etc. And like I said, it comes with a significant amount of content, 60 rules. And we are continually increasing that number. So by the end of this year, we'll have a lot more, and we can continuously deliver content, and we don't need to wait for release cycles. We can just deliver the rules when they're ready. So that's a little bit of change as well, that we're benefit that we're getting from the cloud. So this solution's looking really good. It's still a young solution, but it is, we're seeing a lot of customer adoption, and it's not, as I thought, it would be purely by the smaller and the net new customers who are going for S4, but actually it's not. I think a lot of bigger companies are willing to make some compromises or some sacrifices of functionality just to be ready for the future, just to be using SaaS cloud solutions. So a lot of the bigger companies we've seen them adopt this as well. So huge interest, and will be more so as we go forward as well. If I move to access governance, where it all started for me at SAP, it's all about the hire to retire process. Making sure policies are in place, making sure that segregation of duties are appropriate, making sure that provisioning is done correctly and appropriately with the right compliance checks, make sure that there's constant reporting and certification processes, etc., and audit of the whole system. And this is where the combination of the solutions we've got, from single sign-on, identity management, access control, etc., all play. We've got integrated processes for hybrid landscapes, as I mentioned. So right now, we've got things like the identity and access governance or identity provisioning service, which are the cloud solutions which are similar to things like single sign-on and access control. And the question of how to integrate those, whether to integrate those, whether there will be additional value of integrating those, really comes down to a lot of questions. I can't give a straight answer in this call. It really needs discussion with an organization such as Turnkey, who have got the knowledge and got the experience to be able to advise better in that space. Automated business event-driven identity lifecycle, so it ensures that provisioning is aligned with the policies of the organization, and much greater transparency into the access assignments and the roles that we've got within the organization. Everything is to try and make it faster, quicker, safer, and more comprehensive, wider. So we've seen recently in the last couple of years, a lot of companies who have been using access control for 10, 15 years perhaps, come back and look at extending that functionality across their enterprise, across the other solutions within their environment. So again, similar to before, we've got the recent innovations, which is already developed, and then the planned innovations, what we are working on right now, and then the future direction. We have got flexible, so this is recent innovations. We've got workflow for access requests now, and we've got risk review reports and integration to success factors. But the biggest, I think, thing that people have been waiting for is emergency access management or privileged access management. Within access control, one of the most successful modules within access control was called Firefighter. I think we changed the name of it many, many times, but people still referred to it as Firefighter. And that was seen as a huge gap within identity access governance. And so it's really exciting to be able to say that now we've got the almost full parity between identity access governance and access control. Identity access governance is becoming a very mature solution. And like I said, we're seeing a lot of companies invest in it. Going forward, the things we're working on at the minute, APIs, integrations to solutions such as Concur, the SAP Sales Cloud, Advanced Financial Close, etc. So the cloud solutions that we've got, gradually adding those onto the identity access governance out-of-the-box functionality. There is the possibility to plug these solutions in with a manual effort sometimes, but of course we want to build out-of-the-box connectors for them, especially for those SAP cloud solutions that we've got. Going forward, access analysis integrations, third-party application support via APIs, and much expanded capabilities around the Firefighter that I talked about, the privileged access management. If I move down to the on-premise solution, access control, again, we're not really adding a huge amount of new functionality. We're just improving and optimizing the functionality that's in there. So we've already got business role management as part of the solution, but the ability to create users during business role provisioning, the improved selection for risk analysis with multi-select for easier definition of audit reviews, and still enhancements to the Firefighter solution, emergency access management. Process optimization, this is the planned innovations, simplifying the Firefighter logs. One of the downsides of Firefighter is the amount of logs. If it's configured badly, or if you set up Firefighter to monitor every single user in the organization, every single person in the IT department, every contractor that comes in, there's huge amounts of alerts coming, or huge amounts of log files, and those need to be analyzed. And there's no point in doing any sort of control test unless someone or some machine is analyzing it appropriately and finding out if there's really issues. So it's always a challenge for us to improve how we analyze those logs and make sure that they're really providing the right information at the right time for customers. Improvements to the risk owner stage. So this is part of the workflow for within our solution, but as part of the provisioning process to make sure that there are changes and improvements for the risk owner stage. And increasing the integration, we've got SAP Identity Management. It's still a very successful solution that we got on-premise solution, and yet we still need to consider additional integration capabilities with it or extended integration capabilities with it. I'm going to jump forward into the next slide and focus on identity access governance specifically. So as I mentioned, we've got a lot of focus around APIs, a lot of focus around SCIM, or the connectivity to third-party systems. But one of the biggest advantages or developments for IAG is the integration to HR systems for triggering. So the idea is that someone within the organization who is a new hire or someone who moves from one department to the other, you know, if everything's working properly, they should never need to make a request for access. They should automatically have the previous access removed if they had any, or the new access given. That new access has been tested for segregation of duties. If there are segregation of duties, mitigations have been advised or put in place. And really making an access request should be an exception rather than a rule. And this is really where we're moving to, and the integration to HR systems for triggering obviously is very important for that. And at the bottom here, I've already mentioned about emergency access management. It's really a big deal for us now that we've now got all the functionality that was previously in access control now in identity access governance. Access control, I'm not going to go through all these, but you can see that there is no lack of investment in access control. We've been, I think I received the question once or twice a week whether IAG is the new version of access control and it's going to take over. I think that long term, yes, probably, if I'm honest. I think that IAG will be the de facto solution going forward. But because of the situation with our customers, but because of the importance of having a hybrid scenario, I think that there still needs to be a huge amount of development on access control or improvements on access control. So that continues around all the modules, whether that's business rule management, user provisioning, firefighter, etc. So access control continues to receive a significant amount of development effort. And as it says at the bottom, the future direction, access control is driving digital transformation, enabling seamless access governance for public, private, and hybrid landscapes. And we've got integrations with the identity access governance solution and SAP IDM. Whenever IAG is used by itself, it is the solution that does the analysis and the user provisioning, etc. But whenever it's connected to access control, it functions as a bridge. So access control continues to test the on-premise solutions using its own rule set. It uses IAG as a bridge to collect the information from the SAP cloud solutions. It's not a simple integration. Multiple systems with the same users, with different user IDs, with different authorization concepts, all need to be translated into a structure that makes sense so the analysis can be done to find risks. And that is something that requires, can be quite challenging. So be aware of the difference whenever if you decide to invest in a solution such as access control. If an implementer says that they'll build an adapter during implementation, it's possible, absolutely, to build a data extract, but it's the translation and modification and cleansing of that data, which means that we really need something other than a simple API to be able to do that. And also, we're talking about connecting to systems which are likely to be changing, and therefore, if you've got a fit for purpose out of the box solution, it has to change with it. It has to stay up to date with what the back end system looks like. So there's a vast difference between having a kind of an extractor built during implementation and actually having a fit for purpose solution such as IAG or access violation management for non-SAP systems. The final topic I'd like to talk about today is one around data protection and data governance. And this is an area where we've seen huge amounts of pressure recently, and I think it's the right thing. Although GDPR is nothing but a pain to me on a day-to-day basis. I can't do things I'd like to do. I can't see the names of people I'd like to see. From a sales point of view, it really makes my life difficult. But from a personal perspective, it's the right thing to be doing. I hate getting those telephone calls from marketing companies. I hate trying to be defrauded by people who happen to have found my information somewhere. So regulations like GDPR, CCPA, etc., I believe that they're absolutely the right thing to do. I remember Sarbanes-Oxley in 2002, 2003, and I remember the screaming from the US companies saying it was too strict, it would kill their business, etc. Fast forward 15 years, it's seen as a huge success. It really has. It hasn't stopped all the fraud or stopped all the problems, but it's made a huge dent in it, and that's very important. And I see the same thing for regulations such as GDPR moving forward when it comes to personal data. 4 areas for SAP privacy governance: assessment, then so evaluating what the solution helps organizations evaluate their readiness and plan to address the privacy compliance. And from there, you can move on to operationalize, where based on the outcome of these maturity, these privacy by design assessments, then companies might like to implement and operationalize automated privacy processes and procedures. And then the section called monitor. Once these privacy processes and procedures are all in place, a key focus is to monitor, check the status, and so on and so forth. And in the end, we of course have to respond. And this is where I would say, the rubber hits the road. Organizations have to be able to support the customers who initiate the requests to view or gain access to their personal data. Fast forward, one other solution that's not on this slide, but I think it's very important to mention, like one of the things I mentioned earlier was the movement to hyperscalers. And most of the hyperscalers that we see are US based, and there is a legal allowance that allows the government in the US to be able to get access to the data if it's stored on US cloud providers like Azure, for example. And the solution that we've got is something called data custodian, but a module within data custodian is called key management services, which stores the encryption keys for that data, so you can feel safe in providing all your information or storing your information on AWS or Azure, etc., because the encryption key is protected through the key management services. And that, of course, with the move to hyperscalers is a big focus for a lot of companies nowadays. One final thing to mention is S/4HANA has been huge for us. The ability to hold all the finance information in a single journal makes it easier for us to do analysis of financial information. If a company has multiple ERP systems, of course, our central finance solution brings all that data into one place, and therefore makes it, again, easy. It's one throat to choke. It's one place to look. This central finance brings that information, instant data replication. So effectively, from a central finance perspective, it doesn't know that there are multiple ERP systems being used by employees out there. It just sees one view of the finance data, and that's huge for organizations. It really is the biggest part of S/4HANA. And I think it increases the requirement for GRC and security solutions, because everything's instant now, everything's real time, everything's fast. You've got instant access to live information. And so we really need a GRC system to be ready for that as well. And so it does increase the requirement, but it also increases the capabilities of GRC because it's that one place to go. But it's been so huge for us, I think, S/4HANA in many different ways, that I think it was important to mention this. I think I'm going to pass over this slide, because this is just some of the facts and figures regarding the value that organizations have seen, of course, with access control reducing segregation of duties by 99% in some companies, and our ETD application analyzing 5.3 billion events per day. We're talking about a real step change over what was even possible before. And if you look at these slides, I can make available, but traditional business models versus what is really an intelligent enterprise way of managing this. Final slide is just to say that we have got 3 real areas of of future investment. One is what we call frictionless consumption. So this is just cloud mindset, cloud first mindset. We're either cloud first in developing public cloud solutions, or we're concentrating on how we can tweak and integrate our existing SAP GRC solutions into the cloud, either from, as it says, new developments or bridge scenarios. Important to push as much of GRC into the actual processes themselves and embed compliance into it. And ideally, proactive risk management. This is where we maybe are looking into getting all the information we can get from all over the business. One of the biggest issues, I think, not just for GRC, is being able to get insights and foresights from the huge amounts of data that are potentially available to people. Lots of that information is totally irrelevant. A lot of that information is very relevant. Being able to choose which and use the tools to analyze that, to be able to predict, to be proactive, that's a goal for us at SAP. And I know I've overrun massively, but I kind of expected that. But thanks very much for the time today. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Chris. And I think that last point was a really good one to end on, actually. And that's a really great session, and fantastic to see some insights into where the solutions have evolved and are continuing to evolve. Also, I think it's really nice to see that the investment continues on the on-premise solutions, because a lot of our customers are well invested in that, you know, and it's important to see that that is continuing in parallel with the evolution of the cloud solutions. I don't want to miss the opportunity to remind people who are going to the SAP user group conference that we've actually got a session on the IAG cloud solution that we just talked about. So, you know, please join us for that. We've recently completed a couple of deployments in that, and I've got some really interesting insights around that new IAG solution. I think we've got time for at least one question, Chris. There are a few more than that, so I'm going to just
I can see.
Here.
I can see them.
Okay. Do you want to pick?
Yeah. Sure, and I might get through them in time. So Harry Guns has said, if our organization wanted to embark on a 3 lines of defense model but not sure where to start, what would you recommend doing? Speaking to organizations like Turnkey, I can't give you the right answer there, because it really depends on where your pain points are and where, you know, what you need to do first. Traditionally, companies have always started with controls first and then retrofitted risk in afterwards. But theoretically, organizations should be looking at risk management first to identify where they need controls. I think that what happens when you go controls first is you end up setting controls that actually there was minimal risk involved to that anyway. So the best possible is to have the combination of these things together. There is a solution that SAP sell for the cloud called SAP 3 lines, which is the combination of risk, process, and audit. But like I said, I think one of the first things to do is to talk to an organization like ourselves, or speak to Turnkey to get an answer around, you know, what's best for you. But you know, long term, I said this to Richard yesterday. No organization is going to be able to have a fully comprehensive 3 lines model by only looking at solutions from SAP. Every organization, like I said, is different, and probably there will be others that need to go there. No organization will be able to find all the relevant data and be able to analyze it and get the right insights and foresights out of it. But if we're not heading in that direction, then we're heading down a siloed path. We're heading in the wrong direction. And this is where I think I see a lot of organizations move towards integrated GRC. If you shoot for the moon, hopefully you'll land amongst the stars, but guaranteed, I don't think anyone will ever get to the stage where they're getting all the information from all the relevant systems, etc. It's kind of an ideal, but we should be heading towards that direction. Dirk Teller said, where can we find about the information about the other boxes like trade or financial risk, etc.? Write to me. Yeah, any SAP sales guy should be able to provide that, but if not, just send me a quick mail. My email address is on the next slide. I'll go to now. But yeah, send me a mail and I can send you as much information, or even just organize a phone call to discuss that with you. I think we may be out of time here. The last question, you've already got process controls on premise. Would you need to evaluate whether you need financial compliance management, or is there overlapping functionality? Yes, there is overlapping functionality. I honestly don't think that, and I probably could get in trouble here, the problem with having both financial compliance management and process control is right now that there is 2 places to have your controls information, which is suboptimal. There may be a time where we can get financial compliance management to function as a bridge in the same way that IAG does, where all the controls information stays in one system. And I think that that's probably the right direction, but it's on our roadmap. It's definitely what we're thinking about, but I haven't got any information about that today.
So thank you, Chris. And on FCM as well, we've been working really closely with the SAP team to develop that. So, you know, we've got lots to say about that if you want to sort of get in touch with us to talk about where that fits into what you've got at the moment. There are a couple of other questions which I'll make sure that we come back to you directly on. So, you know, don't feel that we're not going to answer them. We'll do our best. I think one of them was anonymous, so you might need to let us know who you are to respond. But thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us. And lastly, just to say thank you again, Chris, for joining us and for sort of taking the session, taking us through things and your insight into where things are going from an SAP perspective. So I hope to see you and others at the SAP User Group Conference, if not before, finally getting together. So
yeah, in real life, in 3D. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks all.